Welcome to Issues and Answers with your host, Diane Kinderwater. Issues and Answers is presented as a public service to inform, educate, and better the lives of New Mexicans. And now, Issues and Answers with your host, Diane Kinderwater.
Welcome to the program. I'm Diane Kinderwater. Well, is it semantics? We're going to talk about loser nations, loser states. Well, that's kind of negative. How about if we say winner nations? Winner states. Why are some countries doing better than others financially? Why are some countries very productive and their citizens are happy and wealthy and well educated? And why are some not? We're going to talk to Greg Zanetti with Zanetti Financial to discuss loser nations and winner nations, and you decide what makes some nations stronger than others and what makes some states better than others. We'll be back as we discuss the winners and the losers and how they affect our lives. Stay with us. Welcome back to the program. Why does it affect us that some countries, and we know they're out there, like China, we know their population is well educated, we know that they're physically fit, in the Olympics they tend to win everything. Why are they doing so well? Is it the discipline? Is it the education? Is it their spirit? Is their rolling up their sleeves? Why, again, across our world, it's a global world now, some countries are doing better than the United States. If you're concerned about the future of our country for yourself, your kids, your grandkids, please hear what Greg Zanetti has to say about loser nations. And if we're one of them, you decide. Greg Zanetti from Zanetti Financial, thank you so much. You're a student of history.
Oh, sure. I love it. I think the more you see in the past, the more you'll see into the future. Human beings don't change much. Our technology changes, but who we are, you'll just see cycles over and over again. But it was a great introduction. And why is it that a country like Saudi Arabia, where they have all the wealth in the world, Diane, is poured in there over decades?
All the oil, because they have oil in there. Okay.
Oh my gosh. How come they can't make a toaster the world wants? Where are their Nobel Prize winners? Where are the great hospitals? Where's their contribution back to the world? And you kind of scratch your head and say, what happened over there?
Well, they got a lot of money. They have a lot of money from that oil. What are they doing with it? Is that the question?
Why didn't they blossom and grow and become a world dominant power? Meanwhile, in contrast, you have Hong Kong. Hong Kong's a rock. It has no natural resources.
It's like it's an island off of China.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's got a nice port. There are lots of nice ports in the world, and yet out of Hong Kong, you had all this wealth and prosperity and growth, and the world has flocked to Hong Kong for centuries to do business. So clearly, it's not natural resources that distinguish winners from losers. There are certain traits that those who fail have in common. So let's start going through them. Number one.
And we're talking about countries and states.
Yeah.
And people. Maybe people?
People, and I would say businesses.
And business, okay.
First, free flow of communication, free flow of information. If you ever go to a country and they have state-owned TV, state-owned radio, state-owned internet, everything is controlled by government. It is going to be very difficult for that country to compete over the long run because they don't have true information. That's why we really have to be on guard in the United States against the censorship that's starting to go on from big tech. It's a dangerous thing to shut down alternative speech because it's the mark of an insecure nation or business or state. Number two. Those who fail subjugate women. Any country that takes half of its talent and shoves it to the sidelines They can't compete. If you ever go to a country, Diane, and as soon as you get off the plane, you see all the men at the bar, and all the women are huddled in the corner, all masked up or covered up. Turn around, get back on that plane. You don't want to do business there because it doesn't work. One of America's secret weapons has been women. If you want to see when the stock market really took off, when women got the right to vote, when you started to see women get more involved in the economy, you saw our nation do this. So, number 2, if you see subjugation of women, a mark of a loser. Number 3, you must have rule of law. You cannot have a bifurcated system where there's one rule for the elites and one law for the rest of us. I'm concerned about that in our country now, and I didn't used to be. We're seeing where we're all amazed, both sides. How come he or she gets away with it, but I never would have? When that starts to break down, you know that you're on the wrong path.
And that's a lot to do with regulations and taxation.
It does.
As well.
The big are treated differently than the small.
Or the popular industries are
Correct.
treated differently than perhaps the unpopular industries.
Right. Next, you must have private property. You can actually have countries that don't adhere to democracy or kind of a republic type government, but if they honor private property, you'll find they prosper. If, however, you don't believe that your work, your effort, your sweat, your enterprise will be rewarded, you watch what happens to those nations. The people give up, they get depressed, they get dejected, and it's tough. Next, you must have a society, a culture that values education. And I mean education, not indoctrination, where the government is telling you what to think, or it's this top-down, this is what you will teach, and this is how it will be taught. Over the long run, they fail. Because without it, well-educated, open populace that can debate honestly and openly about real issues in an educated way and not resort immediately to name-calling and slander and whatever to shout people down, where you are confident enough in your education and your intellect, those countries make it. But you can't just value education. You have to couple that with honoring, respecting, and valuing hard work. If you say this, we probably have, each of us has someone in our family who's gotten who has 2 master's degrees, 1 doctorate degree, they're 45 years old, and still in school. Well, clearly that person values education. When are you going to get to work? We need you out there to take all that brain knowledge and do something to help the society. Meanwhile, you've also seen the other side, where a culture may truly value hard work. All right, you've got a 6th grade education, time to go get a job. We all value hard work. It's a wonderful thing, but it makes it tough for that person to go up. The two have to be joined together. Societies and cultures that put those two together, it's an amazing thing to watch what will happen to that society. Next, you cannot reward based on bloodline, clan, relative. If Uncle Louie is getting the job because he's Uncle Louie and not because he has any merit or he has any ability in the work, you will see a nation spiral down very quickly. We saw this in Venezuela. Their oil industry used to be...
Again, a rich country, a lot of money.
Oh, Diane, you go down, even what we've started out at the beginning. When Hugo Chavez took over, the free flow of information stopped. Women were subjugated. We watched dishonest money. We watched Uncle Louie get the job everywhere. Their oil industry collapsed. They didn't value education anymore.
But they still have the oil in the ground. They still have the resource.
They have it all. And they're like Saudi Arabia. It doesn't matter because they have the marks of a loser. And now what's happened? Those poor people. It was the most amazing country. I don't know if you've ever been down there, but it was
Have
symphonies.
you been down there?
Yeah, I've been to South America many, many times. And so I like Ecuador better, and we see the Venezuelans coming through. These were doctors, these were CPAs, these were nurses, professionals reduced to going through garbage cans in their country to try to feed themselves, and finally giving up and saying, I'm out. And the talent just left, and now they're on the streets of Quito or Cuenca or down in Santiago, and truly they're juggling, trying to get tips out the window because you entertained the people at the stoplights.
Oh, literally juggling.
Little juggling.
Juggling. I thought you were juggling their
No,
lives.
no.
Okay.
They're selling oranges on the side of the street.
What does this mean to us, to Americans, to New Mexicans, to our viewers?
Well, I mean, you start going down the list. What do we value? Are we exhibiting the traits of the losers or the winners? And not every country checks all the boxes one way or the other. Do we really value education here, or are we valuing indoctrination? Well, what are our public schools teaching? Do we value hard work, or is it all about the stimmy checks? Is it all about a welfare system? Are we rewarding effort and work, and so, or are we rewarding something else? Women. Do we subjugate women? People say, well, we've had 2 Republican female governors. It's good. But what about all those women whose voices are silent right now, or are sloughed to the side because they're not of a certain stature? Say, I don't know. Are we taking a big part of our talent and pushing it to the sidelines, either because they're not wealthy enough, they don't give enough to a political party, or we don't deem them smart enough? Foolishness. There are lots of ways to be smart. And are we doing that? I'll leave that up to your listeners to decide, or viewers to decide.
Greg, it seems your lengthy list of things, to me, who hasn't studied this, it just would seem like the heavy hand of government would have the most effect of all these things. It affects the education, subjugation of women. So if you have a government who takes power away from the people by giving them stimulus checks, by giving them benefits, by giving them health care, by giving, and not getting anything back in return except for a vote to keep them in the power. That's what I see as affecting our country and these other countries that
it's
have
this
the power.
Top-down model that's failing us. So what's the alternative? Well, throughout history, there are kind of 2 ways to go about it. One is the top-down, heavy-handed, you will do what I say sort of thing, which we saw during COVID. We applied the same rules to Albuquerque, New Mexico as we did to Jow in Lordsburg. Well, it makes no sense at all. But it was about power and control, where everything is funneled up, where they tell you what to do, all power and authority and control, and then they dictate down to us little guys. There's an alternative method.
And the people who put them in power, they're supposed to be working for us. But during this COVID, it was a complete turnaround. They didn't listen. It appeared they didn't listen to what the people had to say.
Meanwhile,
the businesses that they closed.
There's another model which is community-based. We're going to take care of ourselves. And New Mexico's really good at that. We used to call us vecinos, neighbors. We watched out for our families. We watched out for our own communities. We managed it at a lower level without someone poking their finger at us and saying, you'll do it this way. Same with our schools. We saw a lot of control in the communities about how the students would be taught, what would be the curriculum, what our input. Parents had lots of input into the schools. We've turned that completely on its head, where the bureaucrats dictate it all.
The bureaucrats from Santa Fe telling local school districts what to do, and the local school districts know better because they're right in their community.
And so it's really contrary, actually it's contrary to our history and who we were, and actually I believe who we still are. I tell a story about, stay with me here. It was exactly 80 years ago, Diane. The New Mexico Army National Guard went out to California to compete in an air defense artillery exercise. Who could shoot down airplanes the best? This was the old guns. New Mexico won. You know what? Remember, this is the spring of 1941. Their reward, they were going to go to the Philippines to train the Philippine Army, on how to shoot down airplanes. Now imagine you're 18 years old. You're from Espanola. You're from Raton. You're from Albuquerque. Maybe your first trip of your life was to California. Now you're going to some exotic island with pretty girls. What? The greatest thing in the world. We all know what happened in December of 41, Pearl Harbor. That same day, the Japanese invaded the Philippines. Our guys were left there all alone. No resupply, no bullets, no ammunition, no equipment, nothing. The orders were simple. Hold them off as long as you can. The Japanese thought they would take the Philippines in a week, maybe 2. Diane, it took them months to do it. It totally threw their timetable off. Eventually, our guys were down to 100 pounds, nothing left, and General Wainwright calls them in and says, fellas, I'm going to surrender. They said, sir, don't do it. This is our Alamo. He said, no, I'm not going to waste your lives. And we know what happened. Serious military historians look back at that point and say the war in the Pacific was won there. By those guys holding them off for months, it gave America to get time to get back on its feet, where we could then take the fight to the Japanese. But we know what happened. The Bataan Death March followed. During the Bataan Death March, the Japanese saw something they had never seen before. Our guys, the senior enlisted, the officers, went to the end of the line when food was given out. When food was given out. It wasn't often they even get it. And the Japanese were, the leadership went to the back of the line? When these guys came back, by the way, that's leadership. They said, where did you learn that? They said, from our mothers.
Oh.
From our older sisters during the Depression. When money was tight and food was tighter, said they went to the back of the line. They fed us first when we were kids, and they fed Dad, and if there was anything left in the kitchen, they would eat it in there. That's New Mexico. That's what courses through our veins. This is the mark of a winner. Sacrificial leadership. It is what will turn things around. How do our political elites behave here? Do they ever go to the back of the line? Or do they go to the front of the line during COVID? I'll leave it to your viewers to decide which way did it go. The common denominator in all of those things that what marks a failing nation, state, business, is they take more than they give. It's a crime of theft. They may take your money. They may take your dignity. They may take your education level, your ability, your opportunity to move forward. But it's theft.
Is there enough time, though, Greg, because the power hold during COVID was extremely substantial.
Right.
I mean, the average person could recognize that their rights were taken away, their abilities were taken away, their choice was taken away. That was in one fell swoop done. So it hit us hard. We
Right.
saw that. Is there enough realization, though, that they're going to remember this and maybe make a change and go back to saying, we're in charge, the people are in charge?
Yes.
Okay, you think so? In our lifetime?
Yes.
In our country, the same with our country.
Dan, we can all feel it. We're going to go through a time of trial. We've totally messed up our money system. It will fail because it's built on a foundation of distrust and all this money printing. We went through this in the last half hour. Okay, when it fails, how will we acquit ourselves? How will we behave? Are we going to remain a selfie generation, look at me, I? Or will we be like them, where we think about them? How can we help? What can we do? I see that already in New Mexicans. Think of all the grandmas who are raising the grandkids because they had to step up and take over. That's giving back more than they take. You see this in these businesses that have fought through all of this government, and they have fought and they have survived, and they are so prepared to hire and give back. And what can they carried their employees, and no one thanks them and says, look what you did, thank you so much. Yes, that's who we are, it's our DNA. So yes, as this happens, you watch how New Mexicans behave. The leaders will go to the back of the line. And as they do, the people will flourish. That's who we are. So yes, I'm very optimistic. And it's not to say I don't see the dangers ahead. I see them, I believe, very, very clearly.
And our nation, we were talking about, we started the program, Greg, with loser nations, winner
Right.
nations. What about our nation as a whole? Our
I
country,
believe we can do
USA?
it too. I believe New Mexico will actually set the example. It's so often that those who are at the bottom, and we are at the bottom, we all know the lists, we've heard it forever and ever, that they're the ones who rise up and be the example. That's what we should strive to be. And that's who we are. So, yes, I think the nation can do it, and I think New Mexico can lead the way. Yes, Americans are good at going through trial too. And so maybe set the stage here a little bit. 80 years ago, we know what the nation looked like. We weren't at war yet, but the nation was divided. A lot of people want to have nothing to do with the war in Europe, the war in Asia. It was just, that's not our problem. And families were divided. 80 years prior, it's 1860. Think what was going on back then, Dan. We're not at war yet, but it's on the brink of the Civil War. Well, the nation was divided. Free states, slave states, federal power, state power. Boom, we were at it. The next 80 years back, 1780, General Washington's going to lose. The army's deserting, the money's worthless, the nation's divided. A lot of people wanted to stay with Britain. A lot of people thought the rebels were out of control. Who are you, nutballs? Not till actually 1781. Washington wins, the nation is born. 1700, Queen Anne's War, I won't go into that, but the Brits and the colonists decide they need to throw the French off the continent, and their version of the Vietnam War kind of begins. But the tenor of the nation changes, and I'll stop here. 1620. The Pilgrims land at Plymouth Rock. They've lost 10, 15% on the ride over. They do something wonderful. They dedicate the land to God. They say, we're going to be different. We're not going to be Europe. We're not going to have these kings and princes and assassinations and all this intrigue. We're going to be better. And then they almost all proceed to die. They have no idea how to survive in the New World. And not till 1621. They meet the locals, who teach them how to plant and fish and survive, and off we go. In each case, the year that ended in zero. So in this case, 2020 would have been our year. Were we at each other's throats? Was the nation divided? And now here we are in 2021, probably on the brink of some significant change, some trial.
What is your prediction of that?
I think it will be financial that will start it, but I don't know. I don't know what the trigger will be, but I know this. Through every other trial, Americans have come through it better. I'm glad the Pilgrims did what they did. I'm glad we're not under French law. I'm glad that Washington won. I'm glad we don't have slavery. I am glad we beat Hitler and the Japanese. And the heroes arise. We're about to go through this. How will we acquit ourselves? Are we going to be a, what do I want out of life? Or what does life want out of me?
Repeat that. What do I want out of life?
Or better, what does life want out of me? What am I willing to give back?
Time to think.
That's who we are. New Mexicans are that. We have been it since our beginning. We just need to remind them of it.
And it feels good to give back.
Yes.
Maybe that's the feeling that we need to remember, that giving back, doing the duties, makes you feel better than that free stimulus money that's coming your way. That means nothing.
Yes, and our leadership has to adopt that. If our leadership adopts what the leadership, those women leaders back in the Depression, leaders within their families, I'll go to the back of the line.
You had, I saw in a quote with John Quincy Adams, the 6th president, you had on your website. I bet you can repeat it. You want to recite it?
No, go ahead.
You can.
No.
If your actions inspire others to dream more, to learn more, to do more, and the key to become more. If your actions inspire us to become more, you are a leader.
Right.
It's becoming more. That's sensation, and that's what we want. Not just earning more,
Right.
false dollars,
Right.
but becoming more.
Right. And so it's not doom and gloom.
Ah,
We are,
are you sure?
Yes.
Are you sure, Greg Zanetti?
amazing things are coming. Just in, I'll say, in the business world, in the technology world, the nanotechnology, the micromachinery, the artificial intelligence, the quantum computing, Diane, it's all very real. Could New Mexico be a mecca for that? Yes. Do we have the resources here? Do you know we have rare earth elements here? China gives them all to us now when we buy them. We have them here in New Mexico. We can do this. Do we have the brain power at Sandia National Labs and in Los Alamos and in our universities to be a magnet for these things I just talked about? Yes. But we need our leaders to adopt a philosophy of we are not going to take more than we give back, which is what has happened, I believe, here for far too long. Meanwhile, down below, the people are acting the exact opposite way. They do give back more than what they take. And I know we have a segment that takes more than they should. But across the board, no. New Mexicans are amazing people.
After this horrible year of COVID,
Right.
you have come out with great optimism, and it's wonderful and refreshing, Greg Zanetti, to see, because it's been a hard year on everybody, no
Right.
matter if you're a business owner or you're a worker who wants to return to work, or a decision maker. It's been tough.
Right.
But you're optimistic, and I appreciate you
Right.
sharing.
Of course.
Of course. I'm thinking, how can you be? It was a tough time, but because you're a studier of history, you know that we will
Overcome
overcome
and get better.
and get better.
Yes, ma'am.
Not just overcome and get. Greg Zanetti, thank you again for your inspiration for us today.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me on the show.
And thank you for watching. We appreciate it. Have a great week with your family. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Issues and Answers with your host Diane Kinnewater is presented as a public service to inform, educate, and better the lives of New Mexicans. To comment on today's program or to purchase a copy of any Issues and Answers program, visit sunbroadcasting.org or call us at 505-345-1991.